For everyone in the two countries contesting the opening match of the 2021 Rugby World Cup, it was the early hours of the morning. And so it was probably only just of the rugby gods to provide us with exactly the kind of encounter that provides the backbone of every World Cup. France, one of the three big title contenders, entered against a South African side expected to provide nothing other than pride and passion. But man alive, did we all underestimate just how much pride and how much passion they would bring. Looking at the two teams, France's lineup was probably player for player 1 to 15 more talented, celebrated, accomplished than every one of their opposite numbers. And yet, by the time we hit half time, all 15 South Africans were outworking their Frenchy equivalents. And whilst the Boks eventually wilted and allowed the French to run in a few grand essays, this was a huge performance to wake up the world to what South African women's rugby could be, if only they would give it a chance to continue growing, if only they would start to finance and fund it properly. So, how did the Springbok women frustrate France, keep them forced to work so hard for so long? And do Le 15 du Féminin have some real troubles, or were they just being, French? The interesting thing about trying to quantify that France performance is just how well it landed in patches. Namely, the final 10 minutes once they switched out the personnel who'd spent entire match agonising over the errors they kept being forced into making, and the opening, let's be honest, the opening 90 seconds. Rugby matches so often change on moments, and this shot by Cesophilia Salonsi changed the entire game. France regather the restart, and as Philippon carries, Drouin slides out and barks orders, setting the team into a 1-3-2-2 formation with the back set perfectly in the boot here, allowing Foul to hit the outside of a defender and make a great carry. And France's ball in this passage is the quickest they manage all game. This is the best ruck speed they achieve in the full match. Foul pulls a trick that we've been seeing a lot in this opening weekend that kind of is being pioneered by her country's men's team, and pops it off the floor in the place of a ruck instead of quick pull to get Ferrier carrying two. The shape continues, and then Drouin spots a tiny gap here, hoping she can squeeze through. It's a good option really, the space is on, but it's an even better shot. Suddenly, not only is she smashed backwards, but sideways. The entire French shape has to realign on the fly, but Sanzus is focused only on trying to keep this pace up, keep South Africa working. Val here is still running sideways and backwards, but the pass is sent anyway, and she fumbles it. But France keep trying to force things, run things as they were before, and they overplay. Boulard has to panic to keep the ball in play, and loses it. However, not only does this tell South Africa they can get a physical edge on France and disrupt them, it also sees France's key decision maker in Caroline Drouin, the woman who both manages their play and calls their shape, absolutely nailed. She is on the floor hurting from the first minute. France's next attack, she delivers a lovely flat ball to Menengue, and Salonsi flies up and makes the classic bonus shot on the 10, the little nudge, which the referee won't notice because her team are busy making a bulldozing break. France don't set shape really, but Drouin slides in and instead goes for a kick that's not really on at all. It's a terrible option and easily covered. To make amends, she attempts the same thing again on their next attack. This is far nicer. South Africa play a 13.5 player defence in the 22, relying on the blindside winger to track across to cover any chips like this, but it leaves a very small window of space that she'll never be able to get to right here. Vernier recovers and she finishes superbly, but Drouin is left looking weirdly miffed with the kick and then misses the conversion, and after two little shoves to throw off, Caroline Drouin starts to kind of lose her head. Now, your 10 making terrible decisions and repeated errors over and over and doing things like running it from her own goal line when it isn't on here and resulting in, them chucking it into touch is one thing, but for a team like France it has a much greater impact because their game management is a pretty split deal. Their scrum half, Sanzus or Bourdon, makes most of the game management, the play-by-play decisions, but the 10 calls the shape and structures for the others. You can constantly see the French 10 barking orders whilst the scrum half calmly selects from the options the 10 is providing for them, allowing for them. It's like the fly half decorates the room, but the 9 decides everything they do within it. And suddenly, France are having attacks like this. After their pre-called first two phases here, Drouin is seemingly setting nothing. Where in that first play, France were effortlessly sliding into a 1-3-2-2, this shape is most accurately described as a 0. This almost allows her to catch the defence off guard, but Menengue has to deliberately fall over in order to give Drouin options. This isn't a plan. When you compare it to the way England, who are always in some sort of shape and probably haven't lost their structures once over those infamous last 26 wins in a row, it's quite alarming ahead of next week. But it's also evidence of just what South Africa brought. It's sometimes hard to analyse effort rather than simply describing it, but they were just tireless. It was honestly a pleasure and a privilege to watch. Where France played like this was the first match of a 6-game campaign, the Boks approached this like it was the biggest game of their life so far. Because it was. Every single woman on the field outworked their opposite number. They went until they couldn't stand anymore. Aziza Hele was brilliant. She was absolutely fantastic. Where most Boks use their physicality to disrupt, Hele was only ever focused on battering everything forward. She's a brilliant ball carrier, and up against one of the best number 8s in the world in Romain Ménager, more than held her own. She was fantastic. She was a real standout from this weekend. But particular word must go to their front row. Oh, they're fantastic. The men's Springbok coaches have been doing some sessions with this side, but good coaching can only improve you so much because the work rate and determination to demolish that front three have is innate. Sanalisi Charlie shone in particular, and aged just 22, she could be the cornerstone of a South African pack that won't be treated as underdogs at World Cups for a very long time to come, and won't take a backward step for a long time beyond that. Seriously, she is an unbelievable young loosehead, and she's very, very good. I'm such a fan of her after watching for these 80 minutes, and indeed we got further evidence of how far this South Africa team could go from their incredibly well taken try. It's a subtle moment of outflanking and causing France to second guess as they carry repeatedly off a tap penalty, picking and going in field to slowly create this blindside, which is quite bare for France, but South Africa keep their interest hidden and France don't react. Mabenge emerges on that side eventually, but she doesn't hold a whip. She's pretty much dead opposite Boulard, like in line with her, the only defender for France on this side, making her no real threat. There's not really anything to worry about here for France. Yet, as this side starts to open up with them picking and going in field consistently, Sanzus, in the traditional sweeper role, panics. She spreads onto the blind side. She's going to fill this space. But fly-off Jourdan sits behind the ruck, remaining subtle, with Roos, their biggest danger lady, lingering in field. That's what France have got to worry about. That's what they're going to look out for. As such, Sanzus decides, no, you know what, I panicked over the nothing. I said I wasn't going to do the French accent again. I panicked over nothing and slots back into her odd position, but gestures Drouin to slide over to the blind side. Jourdan spots this and figures this is her last chance to pull the trigger. The blind side is now pretty big, and it's the last moment before reinforcement for France arrive. Jourdan flashes round and Boulard finds herself lost, unable to commit to Jourdan or Mabenge properly, meaning Mabenge can slip on the outside and a brilliant handoff and an even better finish, and she scores in the corner for a try that is so well deserved for this young South African team. However, all of it did ultimately fall away at the death. Sanzus's second try is a simple case of tiring an opposition pack as much as possible. Late in the game, France simply worked to keep the ball in play for over a minute and a half. Sanzus attempting to keep the speed up as high as possible so she can wear them down before eventually it shows and she can dart over and score herself, whilst the final try served as the closing act on Caroline Drouin's redemption arc. Seriously, this is like the quintessential French fly-half performance. It looks like you're going to bomb it for a while, you play brilliantly for 5 minutes, you then play pretty ropily for about an hour, and in the last 10 minutes you produce some just world-class form, score a try and create an absolute worldie here. It is the quintessential French fly-half World Cup game performance, honestly. Absolutely 10 out of 10 in a kind of 5 out of 10 way for Caroline Drouin. Absolutely perfect. No notes. Brilliant. Please keep it up. Having been moved into the centre in the final few minutes, not only does she run in the try herself, but she has a hand in this gorgeous score. Whilst it looks like a simple moment of superior skill overtaking their opposition in the last minute, it does provide one interesting innovation that England will want to take note of ahead of the coming week. France are still running their usual attacking shape, but they've brought Drouin, playing 12 at this point, in to act as the tip-on, a role normally taken by a back five forwarder, a lock or a flanker. This integration of backs into their forward structure is a new twist on France's game that we didn't see in the Six Nations or in the previous 70-odd minutes. Almost like France wanted to trial a new structure in action once or twice in a game scenario, but not make it obvious before they play England on Saturday. With form like this, it's looking like an uphill struggle, yet if David versus Goliath battles featuring heart enough to keep the floodgates shut for most of the game at the backbone of Rugby World Cups, it's the unpredictability of French teams that always really gives them life. And we have a prime opportunity to see an all-time example of such Gallic flair and joy coming up this weekend. The Rugby World Cup is officially underway. It's happening. It's going. Trying to have 3 games this weekend. Wales Scotland is done. That is in the can. That will be with you tomorrow, all being well. And then New Zealand Australia. South Africa was this game. New Zealand Australia. Hopefully on Friday as well before the next round of games kicking off. Middle of the night, as it were. Should be there in the morning for you in New Zealand, or a time zone
relatively similar to that. I'll see you soon for far more of this. I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you soon for more.
I can't ask for more than what I've got today.
Love seeing the smile. Thank you so much for entertaining us out there.
Thank you, it's a pleasure.